Hey everyone, I'm Majiin and welcome in to World Tour Weekly, your one-stop shop for all competitive Flesh and Blood news. This past weekend we had Calling Kansas City and a couple of fun spoiler cards, so without any further ado, let's get into it. Now, the story going into the event was that Gravy Bones and Slippy were the top decks of the format. We saw some Wizards start to do well in previous events, and Dash.io started showing up more and more as time went on. She even won the previous Calling in Auckland. Speaking of Calling Auckland, that event had Ira taking the third most represented spot. I had talked about how I think it's probably due to her very strong Gravy matchup, and I wanted to see if it would continue in other events moving forward. This past weekend would have also been a big event for Guardian players to watch, considering Mastery Pack Guardian released last week, and this would have given players a full week to get their hands on the cards. Now with all that laid out, let's zoom into the tournaments to see how the format has changed in this week's Metagame Minute. Looking at the Kansas City Calling breakdown, we see once again that the top three heroes are Gravy Bones, Slippy, and Ira. This seems like a confirmation to me that Ira is considered one of the top decks in the format by players and that we should expect to see more of her moving forward. After Gravy and Slippy, the metagame looks incredibly diverse with a lot of different classes and heroes all having a solid slice of the total pie. Verdance is once again the fourth most common hero, but Syndra, Dio, and Acilio aren't that far behind. I've been pretty impressed with Acilio's performance lately, but I've also been very impressed with the level of play that I've been seeing from Acilio players. It seems like a lot more people are getting a strong grasp of what it takes to get the most value out of the Lightning Wizard. If the metagame shifts to be a little bit slower with the release of Super Slam and Mastery Pack Guardian, then Acilio could end up being a real powerhouse. I'm also seeing quite a bit of Guardian representation for this event. After watching some of the streamed games, I could definitely see the power that Guardians gain from their Mastery Packs release. In particular, Valda did some very impressive things on stream, and I can't help but feel like with a few more weeks for players to smooth out the list, she could end up being another top contender. This is doubly true considering we're about to get another Guardian heavy set in the form of Super Slam. Shifting over to the Day 2 graph, Verdance once again is one of the top converting heroes, with Syndra right behind her. Prism did phenomenally well with a full 50% of players bringing her, making it into Day 2. I have to wonder if Illusionist players found something to improve their matchups against the top decks, or if maybe it was just a good weekend for her. On the flip side, Ira converted really poorly, with only 13% making the cut. However, she didn't perform nearly as bad as Dio, where only 1 out of the original 24 copies converted to Day 2. I have no idea what went wrong there, but as you'll see when we flip over to the top 8 bracket, that 1 copy of Dio made it into top 8. Alongside her were 2 Acilio, 3 Gravy Bones, 1 Prism, and 1 Fang. Shockingly, no Slippies made it into the top 8, but Acilio continues to prove that he is the real deal, putting 2 players through to the final bracket. Another thing that's been pretty surprising to me is that Verdance has a very high play rate and a very high conversion rate, but we don't tend to see many copies of her making it into the top 8. It could be that the deck thrives when playing against a more diverse field, especially against decks that aren't considered top tier, but then struggles a little bit when up against the other meta decks that you can expect to run into deep into a tournament. Or I could be over-speculating. Only time will tell. But that's enough about the hero breakdown. Let's talk about who won the events in today's Weekend Winners. After a Gravy Bones mirror match against Jacob Clemens, Evan Herndon claimed the crown as the Kansas City Calling champion. If that sounds familiar to you, it's because Jacob Clemens just lost in the finals of the Calling Auckland the previous weekend. With his recent finishes, he has been absolutely rocketing up the Player of the Year leaderboard and now has 93 points. He bumps Michael Hamilton out of second place in the global race and is only 18 points away from Brody Spurlock. As far as the Europe leaderboard is concerned, he has completely pulled away from the rest of the pack with a 29-point gap between him and Tommaso Vecito in second place. I'm not gonna lie, I figured that Brody Spurlock had the Player of the Year race completely locked up, but Jacob's current run has been so insane that it's shaken my conviction a bit. There are still quite a few big finishes needed for him to claim the first place spot, but it's not nearly as far-fetched as it would have seemed a couple months ago. Moving over to the Battle Hardened event, fellow Wizard player James Miller took down the entire thing on Kano Drakai of Aether. When looking at the top 8 bracket from the Battle Hardened, a couple of things jumped out to me immediately. The first one being that there are 2 copies of Arachne Marionette, and the second one being that there isn't a single copy of Gravy Bones. Speaking of Battle Hardened events, Liam Bennett won Battle Hardened Perth with Prism Awakener of Soul. That wraps up our weekend winners though, so congratulations again to all of our new champions. Next up, I wanted to bring some attention to a card that really impressed me on stream in today's Card of the Week. I watched the entire Kansas City calling stream and I was just so impressed by Leyline of the old ones. This may seem like a little bit of a plant because I got to spoil this card on World Tour Weekly, but I saw it hit play early in the game and it just never stopped giving value. It made a seismic surge almost every turn of the game because if you're blocking out Guardian every turn, then you're probably just losing the game. And it never went away because Valda's hero ability and Tectonic Plating kept it active. This card definitely deserves to be legendary considering how powerful it seemed if you draw it early. Obviously, the downside of the card is its inability to block, but I don't know, the upside definitely seemed worth the potential downside. Not being able to block isn't even that big of a deal because it's a blue, so if you draw it later in the game, you can just pitch it for a more offensive play. I wanted to bring this card to people's attention, one, because I think it's really cool, and two, because I think there's still a lot of cooking left to do with the Guardian class, specifically in regard to Valda. It would be pretty boring of me to just make Valda the card of the week, so I picked the new splashy fun legendary card instead. Okay, now for the fun part of the video, the new spoilers. Someone in LSS decided it would be a good idea to give the most powerful hero in Flesh and Blood an entire new suite of specialization equipment. Which is just insane because this hero has absolutely been dominating kitchen tables across the globe with tens of armory wins to his name. He's already well on his way to rotating out of the format with 7 whole living legend points. Obviously, I'm talking about Olympia and his new golden suite of armor. They do come in Marvel form, so you can suit up in some serious style. Jokes about Olympia's current competitive viability aside, I do think these cards give him some pretty cool tools. The individual pieces of equipment have temper 2 and count as gold, which is obviously supposed to pair well with his other specialization, Visit the Golden Anvil. The idea being that you block with each of these as fast as possible, get your 8 value, and then play Visit the Golden Anvil and sacrifice the equipment to the additional cost. Then you get to equip an entirely new suite of equipment. If the metagame finds itself in a more value-centric position like it did following the release of Heavy Hitters, then this type of play could actually be really powerful. I doubt it's enough to drag him into a competitively viable spot for now though. Alright, now for the card that I'm obviously really excited about, Light Up the Leaves. A red 3 cost 3 block Earth Wizard action that says deal 6 arcane damage to any target. It also has an instant ability where you can discard it and another Earth card to prevent 6 of the next arcane damage target source would deal. This card may as well say Verdant's specialization since we don't have any other hero that can play Earth Wizard cards. Now, the second line may seem like a Kano killer, but I'm a little skeptical. You'd have to present lethal to force Kano to combo into you, and then you'd still have to have this and another Earth card to discard in order to use the prevention effect. Even after that, you might still need to pay for some Arcane Barrier in order to fully stuff the combo. I think it's a lot more likely that this ability shines as a way to get 2 Earth cards into your graveyard on turn 0 to help your decompose effects. We've seen that be strong with cards like Arcane Twining in the current lists, and that's not even an Earth card. We've also seen Burn Bear do some pretty incredible things for the deck just as a 3 cost 6 arcane damage non-attack action, and that's even with its inability to be pitched. This card can be pitched, and it's an Earth 3 block. It's like literally perfect for this deck. That's without even mentioning that Verdant's players can fetch it back from their graveyard with Plume of Evergrowth once their opponent gets to a low life total. This essentially gives the deck 9 arcane damage on demand when you factor in Stormstriders and Waning Moon. It's an automatic 3-up for every Verdant's build right now, and I can't wait to get my hands on a set of these. Alright, but that's enough about what happened this last weekend. Let's talk about what's coming up. Skirmish Season 12 is officially underway, featuring the Blitz, Living Legend, and for the first time ever, Crack Shuffle Play formats. There's some really cool prizing up for grabs, including Cold Foil Cerebellum processors and Scurv Stowaway. Looking at the Week 1 skirmish wins for the Blitz format, Aurora, KO, and Florian are tied for first with 8 wins apiece. The overall meta seems incredibly diverse though, with a huge range of heroes getting a few wins. I'm also surprised to see Blaze and Verdance continue to do well even after the Stormstriders ban. We also have Battlehardened Phoenix and Calling Copenhagen coming up this weekend, both of which are classic constructed. Calling Copenhagen will have a live stream and will feature another spoiler during the broadcast, so make sure not to miss it. That's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Majiin, and I'll see you next time on World Tour Weekly.